Alright, so today I'm going to talk to you about some exercise physiology that goes on during your exercise. So this is energy metabolism throughout the course of a set. So non-stop max effort, or somewhere in that 80% to 100% effort range. So on the Y we've got ATP turnover or production, and ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and it's the energy currency of the cell. So in other words, it's the energy that every cell in your body uses 90 to 95% of the time when you're doing work, especially in the muscle. On the x-axis we have time in seconds, from anywhere from 10 to 100 or beyond. And then we've got it divided up. We've got our different energy systems and the colored lines. And then our purple line here is our total energy production. So it's a lot to take in at once, but we'll break it down. So starting with the blue line, this is when I first come into the gym and I pick up, say I'm doing deadlifts, and I pick up the weight. The first energy system I'm primarily running off of is this blue, which is the phosphagen system. And that is ATP-PC, which is phosphocreatine. And creatine is like the supplement you hear of in stores that powerlifters and strength trainers use. It's one of the most researched supplements there is out there, and it's nothing but benefit. There's no downside to it except about possible overdose can cause like gastrointestinal discomfort, things like that. But supplementing with creatine contributes to this blue line, which in turn gives you the most ATP turnover, so roughly at that 40 mark, which gives you the power to carry out powerlifting, speed training, agility training, and strength, anything with that high intensity, lots of muscle activation type work. So after about 10 seconds, that's when this red line goes higher than the blue. And what that means is my phosphocreatine depletes very quickly, and then the glycolytic system kicks in. The glycolytic system is, in other words, it's just burning carbs. It's running off of glycogen, blood glucose, things like that. And so at this point, they're all contributing, but it's primarily the glycolytic system. So beyond that 10 second mark, you're burning carbs, you're doing maybe a set of 10 or 12, something like that. You're in that strength training and hypertrophy training range. So if you are trying to get stronger, not necessarily a power lifter for 1 rep, 3 rep max, but say a 5 to 6 rep max, you're going to be running mostly on carbohydrates. And then going on beyond that 30-second time frame, when I'm still non-stop, I've been holding weight, moving around for 30 seconds non-stop, I'm still running on the glycolytic system, but here towards the end of that, that range, the aerobic system kicks in. And at that point, the aerobic system is when you start using the oxygen that you're breathing in to burn fat primarily for energy. So these two systems are anaerobic, meaning you don't need oxygen to carry out function, but you will create what's called an oxygen deficit, and I'll explain that in part 2. So anyway, we get back to the 60-second mark. The aerobic system is your primary source of energy, and anything beyond 60 seconds, you'll be burning fat more than you're burning carbs or using the phosphocreatine system for energy. And so how this applies to your programming or what exercises you want to do is that you need to break up your power to 0 to 10 second time frames. Anything beyond that, and you're not optimally training for power development. If you want strength development, your sets can last anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds long. It's at that point when you're using more carbohydrates than you are creatine. At this intersection around that 10-second line, that's when they're both contributing about the same amount. So that's an optimal way to burn both energy systems at the same time. But moving toward 30 seconds, your creatine starts to deplete, and you run into this third category, which is hypertrophy, or trying to get your muscles larger. That's when you use all three systems at a pretty balanced amount, glycolytic still being the highest. And so people like bodybuilders, they have the advantage of being in that gray area right in the middle where they can get a little bit stronger, they definitely get bigger muscles, and they also develop a little bit of muscular endurance because they're training in that 12 to 15 rep range, or anywhere where they're under constant tension from 30 to 60 seconds at a time. And then muscular endurance or flexibility applies to people like marathon runners or bikers or people who prolong their exercise for 60 to 2 minutes and beyond non-stop. It's at this point when your total energy production, it's not optimal, but it is constant because you are no longer in an oxygen deficit and you've reached what's called steady state, and you can go on forever for as long as you have enough fat to run off of. And so, considering where you want to be as an athlete, you should look at these sections as time frames for your sets. If I want to get stronger, my set should be 10 to 30 seconds long. If I want bigger muscles, my time under tension should be 30 to 60 seconds. And then if I want to build endurance, I should be working for more than a full minute non-stop. And it also applies to flexibility, which we don't need to forget about. Flexibility, stretching out a muscle. Anyone that's ever told you to stretch for 20 to 30 seconds, they're not giving you a good estimate. Research has shown that if you want to increase flexibility and you want it to last longer than that day, you need to hold a stretch mostly for 120 seconds or longer. 2 minutes is that minimum mark for flexibility. And so that falls underneath that muscular endurance category for that reason. Another thing to consider with these 4 categories going on is your diet plan that you're on. Because if you're over here and you're training for power and strength, you're running off both phosphocreatine and carbohydrates. There is a little bit of fat you're burning, but it's not too much that it affects your diet too much or where it needs to be the primary source of energy. You definitely want to, after your workout, replenish your phosphocreatine and your glycolytic systems or your muscle glycogen. And how you do that is you go home and you binge on carbs, just like rice, pasta, even sugary treats are okay in this time frame if it's 1 to 2 hours post-workout. Creatine system is easy to replenish. It's in meats. You can supplement with it, like I was saying earlier. And that contributes to fat burning, is that your body's replenishing creatine throughout the rest of the day after your workout. And then if you are, say, a bodybuilder and you're working on hypertrophy, it's very important that you replenish your glycogen because that's what causes your muscle to get larger, is storage of muscle glycogen and drawing in water into the muscle cell to make it grow. The aerobic system, which mostly applies to muscular endurance or endurance athletes like marathon runners and triathletes, things like that. One thing you need to consider is that you're mostly running off of fat, and I mean body fats and triglycerides in your blood. And that might be a great thing if you're trying to lose weight, but one thing to consider is that fat is not just an energy source. It is also a huge contribution to hormone production and stabilization. It contributes to cell production and like that phospholipid membrane around the cell. So it has more functions than just giving you energy. So it's important that if you're training for marathons or you're going out and you're going long distance, steady state, burning a lot of fat, that you're eating enough dietary fats so that you don't become hormone deficient or you don't get all sick or tired from your workouts. Because a lot of, say marathon women, they experience hormone fluctuations and menstrual, what's the word? menstrual issues. It'll throw off your cycles. So there's this female athlete triad where it affects that, it affects your energy levels obviously, and it can also affect your bone density. So it's very important, what I'm getting at is it's very important that if you're an endurance athlete that you are eating a high fat diet, like the paleo diet, which is good for that. And so when you're structuring your own workout programs, it's really good to consider what you're going after, whether it's endurance, hypertrophy, strength, or power, and speed and agility, and that you apply both your nutritional plans as well as your workout programs to your goals. If I want to get powerful, I'm not going to do a set that lasts 60 seconds or longer. So apply these time frames to what your goals are, and also make sure that if you're going to see a personal trainer, that he or she knows about this concept. It's a very basic concept. It's taught at all universities and exercise science programs. make sure that they are applying your goals and using that to structure your program accordingly.